Right, so now we begin the series, a new series. This will be expanding on the basic concepts of what we call the collaborative education and research. Yeah, what the website is all about, what Facebook is all about, what the videos are all about, and the podcasts to follow. So let's establish the basis. This will be hopefully not so short. I made some bulleted points of the basic questions: the why, the who, the where, and what. Typical questions that we humans ask ourselves. What is this thing? How will you do it? And who is involved? That kind of stuff. Okay, so let's get down to it. The objectives, the why. Well, what is the objective of collaborative education and research? Well, let's go through it step by step. So what's the objective? First, create a hive mind of academia, experienced professional in any applied fields, and youth. What do I mean by this? A hive mind is a concept which basically says a group of minds together becomes something like a quantum field where ideas and concepts interact with one another in a very dynamic fashion, multi-dimensional fashion. Where one field of knowledge can be applied to another, each field grows in their own unique ways, and the knowledge, the research that has been accumulated by humanity so far can be applied in a very productive sense, a very constructive sense in rebuilding the true human civilization. Second point, rejuvenate old concepts and new base concepts. Remember, we spoke chapter 1 to 5 as foundations for evolving a new humanity. We talked about the human being in action, the human in a being. What do you mean by human being? You got to dissect these things. Never take anything for granted. Question everything. So we need to rejuvenate that. We need to establish new energy into that, and that's one of the purposes of the why. Yes. Third point, collaborate on multidimensional research topics, evolving new thought. Now, how do you evolve new thought? We spoke about this in chapters 1 to 5 of the first series. You'll get rid of a lot of old stories, old myths, old lies, old everything, right? So how do you discover new thought? Well, first of all, collaborate. Participate with one another across the continents, across all boundary lines, state lines, country lines, continental lines. With internet, you can do everything. So we're using internet as a tool, as a media, really, to bridge this gap between educated people, between experienced professionals, and take youth into the same forum so that the youth learn from a free knowledge and experience sharing platform. That's what this collaborative education aims to achieve. I haven't personally seen anything like that on the internet yet, so, this is a start. Research on uncharted territory, new forms of human civilization. Now, this would be a little more deeper, obviously. What forms of self-governance, self-ideation, self-standards of human living, etc. How can we evolve wherever we are? It doesn't matter wherever we are on the planet. What matters is how we evolve a system which is more aligned with all the basic concepts. Remember the goals we strived for circular living, with the humans, with the planet, with all the other beings, with elementals, everything else. So we are living in a closed system. So we better think of that when we think of everything to do with research. It has to be towards a goal. Because a human mind is very, very complex, very, very capable of inventing all kinds of new thought. But we should be aiming in a particular direction. Otherwise, it's like an unguided missile. It goes in all kinds of directions, and we can use the same knife, for example, to cut a vegetable or to cut a person's throat. And we have been doing the latter so far, right? So we need to use the knowledge for the right reasons. There's always this thing, the same knowledge can be used on both sides of the coin. So we better start learning and mature as humanity to learn to use properly. That's the research or uncharted territory we are talking about. We need to go beyond what's been forms of governance, forms of economy, forms of liberal arts, forms of economics, and so on and so forth. We'll establish this in the further podcast. Engage in new forms of debate based on base concepts with all the above in mind. So whatever we just spoke of in the previous bullets here, we should keep with the base concepts. Base concepts as in the chapter 1 to 5 that we discussed as a beginning point. That's the starting point. Expand on how one field findings can be used in another. Multidimensional translation. Now, what do you mean by this? Biology, we spoke of this briefly in chapters 1 to 5 somewhere. Biology or inventions in or discoveries in biology can be used in probably chemistry, probably can be used in mathematics, probably can be used in physics, geology, I don't know. Can be used in any number of things if we just open our minds on how the findings, whatever has been discovered, invented, can be applied or translated. That's why I call it multidimensional translation. You have to translate it. You can't say what has been invented in biology in a nerve cell can be used directly in chemistry. No, you can't. You have to translate it. And the best person to translate from biology, as a biologist offers, to a physicist is the physicist himself. He needs to start thinking or open his mind to the possibility of how can I apply this particular kind of concept, a kind of equation, or kind of law, or something that has been discovered or unearthed in my field. That needs to be done. There has to be a multidimensional translation. And this can only happen with participation of all kinds of educated people, academia, experienced professionals, and youth. Regenerate all forms of individual and collective knowledge based on base concepts. So regeneration, what do I mean by regeneration? We need to re-infuse whatever has already been learned. For much of it, many of it is true. We are using the PCs, we are using electricity, light, sound, quantum physics, everything is fine. What do I mean by regeneration then? Well, we have not come across many fundamental breakthroughs yet in the last 60, 70 years. So we are pretty much dead as humanity so far as sciences are concerned. With very marginal increase. What could have increased is very phenomenal. But we need to engage in a more meaningful way, not just militarize everything or make weapons out of it, but use it to construct the human lives and the earth. Right. So that's the objectives. Now the means, the how. How do we do this? Well, this is the idea. Creating online collaborative platforms like Facebook, Google, online classrooms, discussion groups, etc. So we are bridging the gap of the physical distance, the racial differences, the country differences, cultural differences, by what? By we are using the common platform as education. All of us are educated in some one common kind of way. Well, that's a good starting point. So we are using online and collaborative platforms which are already available to share, to talk to one another, to see where we can meet, to see what we can evolve. It's an open-ended playing field, as one would call it, because nothing has been done like this. Well, let's give it a go and see what goes on. engaging in online video meetings to connect and associate across all boundaries. So there's no limitation of race, caste, color, creed, country, nothing. There's no limitation with the online video meetings to see, like, let's say, have an online meeting on Zoom or on Google Video or on Facebook Live or any number of means. Lots of them are doing that anyway now. So we will use that to pick a topic and start a discussion on that and see wherever it leads to. And it keeps getting better and better with as in any exercise, really. Expanding on individual and collective ideas, concepts, knowledge, and understanding. So every individual has gathered some of all of this, yes? Ideas, concepts, knowledge, and understanding. So we expand on that. You know, the expansion we talked about in chapters 1 to 5. So these are using all the creation, engaging, expanding, regenerating. They're using all the tools that you already talked of in chapters 1 to 5 of the first series. Regenerating all known knowledge. Again, we spoke of this little briefly. It's like going into uncharted territories, not with reinventing the wheel. There's nothing to reinvent here, but always look for the aim of going into new territories. What? But with the sure-footedness of the base concepts, which we talked about in 1 to 5 in the first series. So we need to infuse and regenerate new ways of living, new forms of all kinds of knowledge that humans have gathered in every possible field. This is not limited to science. This can be even psychology, this can be biology, this can be geology, this can be music, this can be painting, this can be anything. There's no limitation to the kind of field we are talking about because all is knowledge, all fields of human knowledge discovered so far. The actions, the what? What do we do? Well, again, it comes down to the basic parameters we talked of before. First of all, participate in whatever you can. You are the educated, privileged ones of the planet. How many people do you think have education in your country, wherever you are? I don't care where you are. How many people do you think have it? How many boys and girls in your neighborhood do you know went to a college degree and got a college graduation degree? You're privileged in that. You have something that many on the planet do not have access to. So, can you do something for your brother and sister? Can you participate in whatever you can to go beyond your little degrees and egos and evolve something greater for the whole planet? Well, this is a way it could be done. Engage. Leave aside all your personal bias and prejudice. This is a big one because most people, many even the so-called educated ones, are stuck in this. Your personal bias, your personal prejudice against this or that. Maybe a political party in your country. I don't know, maybe it might be corrupt government, all these conspiracy theories and all these kinds of rubbish. You're wasting your precious earned knowledge into nothing. Each of us is going to die one day anyway. Why are you wasting your time participating in all the unnecessary bias and prejudice? Leave aside all that. Then you can engage meaningfully. Expand your sense of the world, the planet, and your sense of self. We spoke of this more detail in the first series. So that's the expansion, the creation factor. Create a new reality for all humanity. Well, you can do this. I hear people constantly complaining and endlessly about it, and it's told everywhere. History repeats itself. Well, if you do not want the history to repeat itself, you've got to start something new. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So that's what we need to do. We need to create new reality for everything. If you need to create new reality, you've got to do in all fields of human knowledge. Doesn't matter if it's science, non-science, humanities, arts, music, culture, anything. It can be anything. Just be open-minded about it and you can do it. So, regenerate. Regenerate faith and trust in humans. Doesn't matter where you are or not. Now, this requires a big one. This is a big one right now. With whatever is going on the planet right now, right? There's no faith and trust in what humans do to one another. There's a great deal of mistrust and suspicion from one human to another, even in the same country, let alone between countries. This is what you can regenerate by doing this, by participating in this platform. Yeah. Okay. The who participates in this? Those who are youth, who are just coming in with new energy and enthusiasm. Now the youth have lots of energy and enthusiasm, which they're eager to do something and feel worthy of themselves. They're doing it for enhancing their self-worth mainly. They have lots of energy and enthusiasm, but they don't have direction or the wisdom to use the kind of gained knowledge that the elders have. So we are trying to bridge the youth and the older ones. Those who are academia, the educators, the lecturers, the professors, the doctorate, these are the ones who are teaching the younger ones. Okay, so this is the second part of the wheel. The third spoke in the wheel would be experienced professionals, the doctors, engineers, lawyers, sociologists, scientists, artists, musicians, mathematicians, economists, etc. So these are the ones who are practically applying that knowledge, what they have learned in college, schools, in their educational degree, but now they are busy applying it. So we need those as well. We are taking a three-pronged approach here. The youth, the academia, and the experienced professionals. The above three can redefine human life and living only if they come together with a common base and a common goal. The common base we have established. The common goals we'll put forth in these series as we go along in the next coming podcast. So I'll leave you with the final thought. Remember this always. Isn't this the truth? Your priest, your politician, or the banker never gave you the wheel, the light bulb, or the bread. Remember that. True change has and always been brought about in human life and living by education, science, knowledge in various fields. Just look around you where you sit right now. Do you see a house, a bulb, your PC, your phone, wherever you're looking at this presentation? So none of this has been given by a priest, a politician, or a banker. So don't let these three kind of forces override your life and tell you what's good for you and what's not. Look at what's around you first. Decide based on the evidence, not based on charisma or belief systems. That never worked. Look at where it has led the world right now. You need to change your approach. You need to think differently about such things. Then we can make this work. Sure, we can make this work. But we need to shift a little bit in our thoughts, our thinking. We need to approach this in a whole new different direction. Think of humanity in the earth and the closed systems we talked about in the first 5 series. Okay, thank you for listening.